I ran this marathon for 300 hours and somehow still gained weight. Marathon is a game that you either really hate or really love. I've kind of been through both stages. I mean, I never hated the game, but at one point I simply disliked it and thought it was a low quality, trend chasing extraction shooter that AAA was just trying to cash out on. But now, here's my review after 300 hours. Yes, I know that's rookie numbers compared to some of you, but I'll step up. This will be a somewhat in-depth review. I'm gonna talk about everything that comes to my mind, and let's start with the very base of any FPS game, which is gunplay. Marathon's gunplay is often referred to as Bungie gunplay. I have no idea what that's supposed to mean since I've never played any other Bungie games besides the OG Marathon trilogy, but the way I would describe the gunplay is it feels very punchy and satisfying. Every time I shoot a player, I feel like I'm punching them in the face. There are currently 28 guns in the game in Season 1, and the arsenal consists of assault rifles, sniper rifles, precision rifles, submachine guns, machine guns, pistols, shotguns, and railguns. The way that gunplay works in Marathon is a little bit interesting. Just like many other FPS games, Marathon has gun stats, basic stats like recoil, ADS speed, and so on. But there's one stat that stands out from the rest, and that is aim assist. If you remember the Marathon Alpha, you probably know that aim assist existed on PC for mouse and keyboard. Then, due to, I guess, negative feedback about that, Bungie removed it from the game, but not entirely, as it now exists as a stat, and one that you can increase with attachments. The way it works is, it's basically just bullet magnetism. When you shoot your gun, some of the shots that miss will curve so that they end up hitting the target. I'm not a fan of this. I think bullets that miss should stay missed, and there are many cases where I would have died if it wasn't for the game rigging my bullets to make me win the fight. Marathon's movement is very arcadey. You've got your standard slide, which exists in nearly every modern FPS game. So you can slide peek as well as jump peek. Other than that, certain shells, aka characters, have movement abilities, so if you're an aggressive player, you might end up playing a character like the Destroyer, Vandal, or Thief. Instead of a stamina bar that runs empty as you sprint, there's a heat bar that fills up, and once it does, you overheat, making you unable to sprint for a little bit. The same applies to sliding and movement abilities. They cost a lot of heat, and I think that's good. Makes it so you have to be mindful of your movement and not quote-unquote over-move. The only thing I don't like about movement is that it feels a little weightless, like my character feels too light. Marathon is sadly a hero shooter, and that's one of the very few things that make this game feel a bit generic to me. There are too many hero shooters, and Marathon being one really gives a first impression of being just another live service PvP game that just wants to ride a trend, and probably a dying one at that. I think everyone's tired of hero shooters at this point. On top of that, being a hero shooter means there will be abilities that are really annoying to deal with, such as the assassin invisibility or the recon wall hack. Also, it makes solos very unbalanced, especially since the shells are balanced around trios specifically. In solos, there is one character that is significantly better than any other, which is of course the assassin, due to being able to go invisible and avoid all AI. So in solos, most of the time you're going to be fighting the same character. It is annoying to know that Marathon wasn't originally going to be a hero shooter. You were supposed to be able to customize your own shell, but then Bungie got rid of the OG game director and replaced him with Joe Ziegler, one of the two, who previously worked on Valorant, so you already know where this is going. We get another hero shooter. The biggest problem with this game being a hero shooter is the fact that when you combine abilities plus the amount of consumables that this game has, and especially with how certain consumables synergize insanely well with some of the abilities, making them absolutely overpowered. For example, assassin invisibility combined with the signal jammer consumable makes the assassin completely invisible even to things that would otherwise be able to counter the invisibility. stuff like the thermal scopes, certain grenades, abilities. The only thing in the game that counters assassin invisibility with signal jammer is the recon wallhack ultimate, and that's only because that ability has been heavily buffed recently. I think if the game wants to be a hero shooter, some consumables should be removed, especially grenades actually, and then the consumables can be added back into the game as abilities for the upcoming shells. For example, signal jammer could be a team-wide ultimate ability that lasts 30 seconds on a 1.5 minute cooldown, because signal jammers as of right now, they last way too long and you can just pop them one after another and have permanent signal jammer up, and that's a little bit broken. And grenades, yes, the grenade spam has been kind of nerfed with the recent patch where grenades can now no longer stack to 2, so you cannot carry as many in your inventory as you used to be able to, but you can still carry a good amount. And I think the best way to fix the grenade spam is to make grenades an ability for a shell and make it have 2 charges with a 40-second recharge time for each. Marathon is set in the Giga future. It's basically a much more futuristic cyberpunk. You know, there's a bunch of AIs, megacorps and all that. The way that the story is told is through these dialogues after every main quest you finish, as well as the codex which you progressively unlock as you play the game. In OG Marathon, the story was told through these computers that you would find while playing through the levels, and they look very similar to the codex in the new Marathon game, which I think is a pretty cool throwback if you played the OG Marathon. There's a lot of lore to read in the codex if you have the patience for it, that is. I spent a lot of time reading stuff in there to get more familiar with the world of Marathon, and I really think the game is much more fun when you pay attention to its lore. Even though this game is an extraction shooter, I still think that the lore is half the game. Also, if you're looking to get into Marathon, I'd say watching some lore videos of the OG Marathon games is a must. Well, at least the first one. The game will click much easier for you if you understand what happened on the planet where the game takes place. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and summarize the basics of Marathon lore, just the stuff that is absolutely necessary to know. In the not so near future of the 24th century, humans were already living on Earth and Mars simultaneously, but that wasn't enough. They wanted to expand even further to a faraway planet called Tau Ceti 4. To be able to do that, a company called UESC constructed a spaceship out of a Martian moon called Deimos. They named it Marathon. Why? Probably because Marathon would take around 300 years to reach its destination. It was a long run. The Marathon was equipped with cutting-edge tech, such as AIs even stronger than Grok. The problem is, one of the AIs on the ship became sentient, and years after the ship had already arrived at its destination, the AI basically alerted an alien race of the presence of humans on Tau Ceti 4. So the aliens came to fight and enslave the humans. Many humans died in the battle, but the ones that didn't eventually all disappeared from the planet. In the new Marathon, you play as a cybernetic runner, probably because sending real humans over to Tau Ceti again wouldn't be a good idea. You fight UESC, the company that constructed the Marathon, who now thinks that because they constructed it, everything on Tau Ceti 4 belongs to them. You work for these factions who also contributed to the Tau Ceti expedition, and they want their share of whatever is left on the planet. And finally, you aim to uncover what actually happened to the human colony on Tau Ceti 4. What I really like about Marathon's story in the new game specifically is the way that the story is going to progress through the seasons. Every season when the game wipes and you start from scratch, you're going to be doing a different set of quests, and it'll be a continuation of the previous season's story. A lot of people don't like wipes in extraction shooters. There's always this argument that if MMORPGs don't wipe your progress, then why do extraction shooters? And it's because extraction shooters are not MMORPGs. If you're gonna compare this genre to an RPG type genre, it's more like an action RPG. Think of Path of Exile if it was an FPS. That's what Marathon is. Well, not really, but you get the point. If wipes are done like this, where every single season is a different storyline, I think that should encourage a lot of people to actually, come back for every season, rather than just quit the game because, oh, everything got wiped and I have to do it all over again. Like, yeah, but this time it's gonna be a different experience. I could be wrong about this, but I think Marathon is the only game in the genre to do wipes like this. Maps in Marathon at first seem very bland, and when I first played the game I had a hard time being able to differentiate different parts of the map because they all kind of looked the same. Now this is only an issue in the beginning while you're still learning the maps. I thought the maps were really bad and boring, but the more I played the game, the more that opinion ceased to exist. All maps are unique and they have their own gimmicks. For example, Dire Marsh has the lockdown event which doesn't spawn on any other map. Outpost has fiery rain that spawns every couple of minutes and it'll kill you if you stand in it. Cryo Archive has this mechanic where you have to level up this specific thing so that you can access certain parts of the map that require higher levels. One really annoying thing about some of the maps would be these flowers and ticks. Sometimes it feels like they're everywhere and they only really exist to be annoying, and I'm pretty sure that every single Marathon player would love to see these flowers removed from the game. Ranked was a very interesting decision by Bungie considering the type of game that Marathon is, an extraction shooter. While there's PvP in this genre, that doesn't make it a competitive esport game. Extraction shooters are about doing quests, getting loot, and then exfilling with it. Enemy players are only there to be an obstacle, and sometimes not even that, as you are free to team up with other players if you and they want to, which is why ranked makes no sense for this game, and the only reason it exists is player retention. There are pretty mediocre ranked rewards that are supposed to keep you playing the entire wipe cycle, when extraction shooters are seasonal games, or at least Marathon should be. You play at the start of a wipe, you get jacked, and max out your traders / factions in this case, and then you take a break and play something else until next wipe. Every live service game wants to be the only game you play, and they all compete for your gaming time, but I think that adding ranked to this game was not necessary. The gameplay loop is very fun, there's enough stuff to do, and it would take the average player probably an entire wipe cycle to complete everything there is. I'm talking all quests, all faction upgrades, all factions at VIP rank, and beating the compiler. On top of that, it's fine for a game to be seasonal and not something you play year round. That does depend on the genre, but an extraction shooter definitely a seasonal type of game. Ranked isn't even fun as there are lots of cheaters playing it, and by cheaters I mean hackers, but also just cheaters. Since multiple teams can win in an extraction shooter, it encourages players to team up and wipe the rest of the teams while essentially playing 6v3 or even 9v3.
One knocked.
Oh, behind us, behind us. Yeah, are they teaming? Yeah, these guys are teaming. These guys are teaming, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like this should be banned in ranked. Okay, so what do you
Yeah,
think?
it should.
Like in ranked, okay, in a normal queue you can team whatever if you meet people.
Yeah. If it was up to me, I would straight up remove ranked from the game. Stop trying to turn non-competitively viable game genres into something competitive. The only thing that ranked does to this game is separate the already small player base and increase queue times for everyone. I guess the one good thing about ranked is that it also acts as a quarantine for cheaters. They tend to play ranked over regular maps because why wouldn't they? They can't lose. So that way the regular maps are at least for the most part free of cheaters in my experience. But if this is how Bungie has to deal with cheaters by creating a essentially non-cheater playlist and a cheater playlist and separating the player base that way, I don't really know what to say about that. The loot in Marathon can get pretty shiny. Marathon does have very rare items to chase. It took me nearly 300 hours to get my first Vault 6 key, which is I believe the rarest item in the game right now. It is required to be able to fight the compiler, aka the current, I guess, endgame boss. Now, I wasn't doing absolutely everything I could to get this item. I didn't spend most of my playtime target farming this item, but still to see only one in the amount of hours that I put into the game, you could say it's a little bit rare, which is nice. Rare stuff like that makes the game more exciting and adds more longevity. Marathon's menu is one of the reasons why most people gave up on the game before even reaching 1 hour of playtime. The menu starts out looking like a typical Overwatch type menu. But then you start clicking on things and it's like, what am I looking at, right? It's very unintuitive and complex at first. When I first played Marathon and saw the menu, I thought to myself, this is the worst menu / UI I've ever seen in any game. But the menu is another thing that's only a problem in the first few hours. As you play, you will naturally get used to it. And for me, I no longer even think it's bad. It's just different than what you're used to from other games. And if you just stick with it, you will have no issue navigating the menu in no time. A Marathon is a $40 entry price game with a cosmetic shop, a regular cosmetic shop that sells character skins, gun skins, charms, player cards, and all that. There's also a battle pass which is not time limited, and that's very interesting to see from a company like Bungie. Also, you know the thing when a skin costs, let's say 1,050 points, but you can only buy bundles of 500 or 1000, so that way you have to pay more for the skin that you want. That was a thing in the beginning of the game, of course, but due to negative feedback, Bungie immediately changed it. I guess they're really doing anything they can to get some goodwill back. Bungie is currently in a consumer-friendly arc, though the cosmetics in this game aren't very good and it's mostly recolors that I imagine not many are buying. For a game that relies on MTX to stay alive, you would think that they would put a lot more effort into it. So first we have the problem of Marathon simply not being a popular enough game, which doesn't necessarily have to mean the game is making zero money, because there are many games out there that have tiny player bases, but the player base happens to be whales and they spend stupid amounts of money on the cosmetics or pay to win mechanics. But like I said, I highly doubt that even the whales are buying these skins. So the cosmetics really have to improve if they want this game to make money, which of course they do. A Marathon's art style is on the cartoony side, which means it'll age well in 10 years, when the game no longer even exists. I like the art style itself, but I'm not sure about the gun designs. The majority of the guns look plastic and blocky, and I get that maybe it fits the game's universe, but it just doesn't look that good. And it's the only thing I dislike when it comes to the way Marathon looks. Oh, and the triage is ugly. Progression in Marathon is quite long and grindy, so you're not gonna run out of things to do and chase. Quests matter when it comes to unlocking stuff to buy from the factions, aka traders, unlike in, for example, Arc Raiders, where traders don't have a reputation that needs to be leveled up. Instead, it's based on your player level, which means you need to just play the game any way you want and earn XP, whereas in Marathon you have to specifically work for the factions and do stuff for them, which is cool. Also, you can only do one quest per raid, which some people don't like, and I didn't like it at first, but it kind of makes sense as there aren't that many main quests per faction to do. Faction progression starts out pretty quick, but as you get closer to unlocking everything, it slows down significantly due to the items needed for upgrades at that point being quite rare. At 300 hours, I still don't have my factions maxed out, but I've been slacking and not really focusing on getting that done, so it definitely can be done in that amount of hours as others have done it. Performance is one of the big issues with the game. It just doesn't run well. If you have a SpaceX PC, you're gonna get about the same FPS as me with my 5-year-old 3080. The game doesn't seem to be able to take advantage of high-end components or something, so at least everyone has about equal FPS of 100-ish. Therefore, a guy with a high-end PC will not have pay-to-win FPS advantage over you. When it comes to bugs, Marathon isn't really a buggy game, and especially on launch, it felt pretty polished in terms of bugs. I have experienced like a few of them so far, and some of the post-launch patches introduced new bugs to the game, but Bungie has been pretty quick to fix many of the things, and yeah, overall I would say that Marathon really doesn't have many bugs, unless we're talking about these bugs. Like I said earlier, they are all over the place. Now, who is this game for, and is it really as hardcore and unforgiving and hateful to the player as people say? Can you have fun in this game if you're a casual gamer, or should you just not bother at all? In my opinion, Marathon isn't really as hardcore of a game as people who never played it think, though that may depend on what your personal definition of hardcore is. I think the only thing that's hardcore about it is the fact that it's an extraction shooter and you lose your inventory when you die, and maybe the fact that the game is designed for group play and it's not a very solo friendly game, even though solos do exist. The game throws a bunch of items at you for free all the time. There is also a no cooldown free kit, just like in Arc Raiders. It's just that in this game you will be dying a lot more because of the different mentality of the player base, as well as no aggression based matchmaking. If you're a casual gamer, you can absolutely enjoy doing quests, looting and progressing the game, as long as you're able to accept that you're not gonna exfil from every single raid that you go into. If you are a dollar per hour type of gamer and all you care about is getting 40 hours of fun from a $40 game, you can very easily get that. Now, if you're a specifically solo player, Marathon isn't designed for solo play, and it wasn't even going to have regular solos outside of Rook, which is a character that spawns in late into a raid against trios and other rooks. It is a scavenger, but I guess due to community feedback, solos were added and now they exist as an afterthought. It's a much different experience than trios, much slower paced, a lot of sneaking around. I personally played only solos for the first maybe 50 hours, and while it is quite fun, you're not gonna be able to experience Marathon's endgame as a strictly solo player. If you don't have any friends to play with, there is of course the field squad option, which is very hit or miss, and 90% of the time it misses. If you want to do the endgame stuff in Marathon, you're gonna need an actual squad to play with. But if you just want to have a bit of casual fun as a solo, you can have that, even though the game isn't designed for it. The game is fun as a whole, it's not just the end game. In fact, I think running around doing quests and leveling up your factions is sometimes more fun than the end game map Cryo Archive, simply because of how bad the PvP meta tends to be on that map. Final thoughts on Marathon would be that it's a pretty good extraction shooter. Despite the balancing issues, the game is fun and feels good to play. The gunplay doesn't get tiring quickly, and neither does the gameplay loop. Then comes the question, if the game is good, then why do the Steam charts look like this? And if I'm asked, it's for multiple reasons. Obviously, extraction shooters are a very niche genre, and I did mention that I don't think Marathon is a giga hardcore game, but it's also not nearly as casual as Arc Raiders. Combine that with the polarizing art style, and there you go. The game doesn't appeal to the majority of gamers. Another probably bigger reason is that Marathon is made by Bungie, and people don't like Bungie for all the things that they did to the fans of Destiny and Destiny 2 itself. But I do wonder whether or not things would be different if Marathon was a Destiny type looter shooter game but set in the Marathon universe. So basically Destiny 3, but instead of Destiny, it's Marathon. If you saw this video, make sure to hate and unsubscribe.